In today's episode of Empower with Omazi, I will be taking you through my personal career journey. How did I rise from a clinical officer to a public health specialist in Canada? I have seen a lot of people coming to my DM inspired by my story, and I would love to share with you how I navigated from my post-secondary education to my master's education. After high school, I did 3 years diploma in clinical medicine and surgery. You work under physicians. You can work under a physician. You can work in the outpatient department. You can also work, you can go and do an advance in a higher diploma course and do, let's say, obstetrics, do ophthalmology, do ENT, or do obs-gyn and become and specialize in an obs-gyn or specialize in an ENT personnel. So guys, I want to take you back on how I found myself doing clinical medicine. So when I graduated high school, I had really high hopes of performing very well as any other child or any other teenager will have. You have expectations, you have all the hopes, you have your dreams. My dream was to become a doctor, and I really wanted to do medicine. Now, unfortunately, I didn't really hit the pass mark of going into university to do my medicine. So what I did is I was just left kind of, I was almost or somehow lost in between, still trying to figure out what should I do, what can I do. My friend, a very close personal friend of mine, she is more like a family to me, reached out and she's like, Esther, there's a course here in Kenya Medical Training College that is called clinical medicine, and I'm just in class now. The principal just announced that they're still taking people. So I was like, oh my god, you're just an angel from heaven. So I just talked to my parents, and that's how I landed in clinical medicine. I was like, this is what I really wanted to do, because I wasn't sure about nursing, and nursing is really good. Like right now, if I hear anyone in Kenya who is into health or they want to do healthcare course and maybe they haven't hit the pass mark of doing medicine, I'm like, yo, do nursing course. The market is very marketable across the globe. You can never lack jobs. You have the opportunity to travel and work anywhere in the world. So I would be like, number one, telling them, you can do nursing. But then my interest was not a lot in nursing, but I knew I wanted to do something in healthcare. So this course came in like just at the right time. So I took that opportunity, enrolled into clinical medicine, and graduated with clinical medicine and surgery, diploma in clinical medicine and surgery, and thus I started practicing. My first job, again, this one friend, I should give credit to her, but because I didn't ask for her permission right now, I won't mention her name, but I'll be hosting her very soon. I'll be hosting her and I'll repeat the story. So she reached out to me one day when we had just graduated. We had just finished our internship, and she was like, oh, there's a job somewhere I've seen in a newspaper. There's a job that is it has been advertised. Are you interested in trying it? So we tried together, and fortunately I was picked, and she wasn't picked for that role, but she got another role within the town that we lived. So I moved. That's how, like, she stayed in Coast, because we come from Coast. She stayed in Coast, and I moved to another part of country that is Eastern, and that's where I met another friend of mine who I'll be bringing her on my show. So I moved to Makindu, started practicing as a clinical officer, not in outpatient department, but I was deployed in an HIV AIDS clinic, HIV AIDS and tuberculosis clinic. I started working very closely with different programs that in the community, and my interest grew more from a clinical practice to prevention, like more of how do we prevent this, how, because like I didn't want to, like, okay, wait until somebody's sick and comes to me, but I wanted the approach of, like, I want to act ahead, educate the community in way in advance on how they can prevent themselves in preventable infections. With the right knowledge, with the right education in the community, we can prevent and reduce some of these infections. So my passion for public health grew from that, and I started developing interest in public health. I'm like, how do I go into this public health thing? And I enrolled myself in bachelor's. I enrolled myself for bachelor's in public health in Jomo Kenyatta University. And this time I was working as a clinical officer, but then I was also going to school on a part-time. I would go on a weekend, and sometimes I would go, maybe if I have an exam, then I would take like maybe a week off to go and do my exam, or I would really accumulate my days off and go and do my exams. Then I would come back to work. But mostly the studies, or the classes rather, were during the weekends. So I enrolled myself for a 2-year program because I had done a 3 years program in clinical medicine. You get a 1-year credit, but then you do it in like 2 years. So we did a 2 years program in bachelor's public health in Jomo Kenyatta University. After that, I landed myself, even before I finished. I remember even before I just graduated, I landed myself a role in Kenyatta Hospital, where I was working with discordant couples. And I did that for about 1 year. So it was a prep study. It was a clinic that was working with discordant couple, for HIV discordant couples. This is where like one person is HIV positive and the other person is HIV negative. The other partner is HIV negative. And there was a prep study that was ongoing. So I joined when we were just about to finish, or the study was about to end. And after like we concluded the study, I understand that, the clients were then taken to CCC, or rather comprehensive care clinic, the HIV care clinic. But that's where I worked for about 1.5 years. And I graduated my bachelor's in public health, and I moved to work with now programs, prevention program, HIV prevention program and tuberculosis awareness, with an organization in Lower Eastern. I worked with this organization for about 3 years. Then due to funding, blah blah blah, you know how it goes when you're working with programs. Today you have funds, tomorrow the grant is over, or tomorrow if you don't hit the targets, then you have to do a lot of adjustments within the programs. So unfortunately I'll say we lost funding with the current program, and we had to be transitioned to another program. So unfortunately enough, we were able to be retained in the same region, and I got myself promoted to become so I started as a program officer, and then I moved to be a program manager with a new program organization now. So when I started working as a program manager, more responsibilities, you need to be, more aware of things, you need to advance. And I decided, what do I do? Like, do I go? I tried, by the way, I really tried to look for schools, like international schools where I would go and do my master's. I really tried a couple of schools, but I would look at the school fees and I couldn't afford. I knew I couldn't afford. And at that point I was trying to look for scholarships, because I really wanted to do either a master's in public health or something else that will help me be more of a good manager, be more aware on how to run a program, and advance myself, add some knowledge to myself, to help me in my career. So I tried, but it really, I just wasn't very fortunate to get into an international school. So I went to a local school or local university, enrolled myself in a master's in public health, as I was running the program as a program manager. So when I moved from KNH to my first organization, where now I started working as a program officer, I was working with, I had a team. I was leading a team, but then we were under another team, and it was across Lower Eastern, the whole of Lower Eastern. Those ones who come from Kenya, you'll understand. So it was like a whole province, Lower Eastern province. And then now when we lost funding and we had to be transitioned, we were transferred to more of, by that time we actually changed, the Kenyan system changed to counties, from provinces to counties. So I was given a county responsibility to manage. I was assigned a team, and this time I was working very closely with county managers, the local governor team, governor office, because we were working in very close collaboration, bringing in HIV resources, training the teams, training the local staff who work in the hospitals, in the county hospitals. So we're working in a very close collaborations with the county government, as well as other stakeholders, other organizations that were also supporting in one way or another. They are supporting HIV programs, and we were working with the same clients. So then at that point, I started developing different interests, because, like, I will tell you for a fact, when you're in Kenya and you work under non-governmental organizations that are funded internationally, there's a lot of anxiety every time a year comes to an end, a fiscal year comes to an end. You're like, are we going to get funding? Are we going to lose funding? Do we have the stress of application, the stress that you have to like let go of some stuff? There's a lot of that going on, and it had reached a point that it was so much that it was like draining everyone emotionally, because there's a lot of anxiety every day. You wake up, you go to the office, and you're like, what next? What am I supposed to announce to my team? What am I supposed to? So I think it started draining me, and I was like, I need to like look for something that is more stable, look for something that I will not feel that I have to live with a lot of looking around, what next, a lot of anxiety, what next. So I decided to move. And this time when I was moving, I was actually, everything was going, everyone was looking at it as, you're doing so well. You have grown from a clinical officer in the outpatient or in the clinic to a program manager. You're working with the county team, blah blah blah. Why would you leave at this point? Well, this is the right time for me. Like, this is the right time for me to take a move, to take the risk and push myself, so that I push myself to grow. I think it was the best thing that I did. I think it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. And yeah, I packed my bags. I left the job, I packed my bags, and I moved to Canada. What people maybe might not know is, when you move abroad, and when you leave from your country and move abroad, you will have to start from scratch. Unless if you're moving to abroad with a job offer in your hands, then it's a whole different story. But if you're moving abroad for study, if you're moving abroad to search for work, if you're moving abroad with a green card, with a permanent residence, you are starting from scratch, because you have to rebuild yourself up. The education that you have from your country, you really, some of that education is not recognized in foreign countries, and you really have to do a lot of credential assessment, a lot of like pushing and advocating for yourself, that this is what I'm capable of doing, for people to start understanding how capable of how qualified you are. So when I moved abroad, or when I came to Canada, I didn't start working as a program officer or program manager or program coordinator. I started working as a frontline worker, because I couldn't get opportunities right away. And I had my public health, but then I was not certified in Canada to work as a public health professional. So I couldn't use that. So I started as a frontline worker, and then I navigated. I started volunteering. I looked for volunteering opportunities in organizations that work with HIV AIDS, because that was what I was comfortable with. That's what I knew. But again, it's not it's not a lot here. It's not like we have a lot of HIV like back home. It's different. We rarely have TB. I've not had a case personally. I've not come across any case of tuberculosis personally. I've come cases of HIV, but not tuberculosis. So you see, like, it's not, we don't have a lot of it here. So it was not easy for me to come across organizations that work with. However, there are so many programs that are public health related that I could work with. So by the time I realized that, or by the time I started coming across after a lot of research and networking and asking, so this brings my point. Networking is very key. Who do you align with? Who do you mingle with? Who do you interact with? And how do you look out for such program that works for you, or such opportunities that work for you? That is very key when you move abroad, because it starts with having conversations. interacting with people. And sometimes you don't know, but there are even doctors who come to Canada and start working as frontline workers, maybe even as caregivers, because they don't have the certification yet. So the more you interact and the more you get to know, to talk to people a lot or very closely, that's when you come to realize a lot of opportunities are out there. People will tell you, oh, there's this organization I know it works with this, or I'm trying to enroll myself in this course, or I'm trying to enroll myself, or I'm volunteering here. And that's how you come to learn. So I came across this organization in one of the area that I lived. I reached out to them. I applied for jobs, but again, like I couldn't. Unfortunately, I couldn't. Sometimes they would be like, "Oh, I think you're overqualified for this role. It's a very small role. We don't think you're fit." I'm like, "It's okay. I need the experience. Just let me go in." But it's not as easy as that. So anyway, at some point, they took me in as a member of the board of directors for the organization. During that time, I also got an opportunity to work with another HIV organization that was focusing on women, though. So I started working with them, and I was like, things are starting to come through. They're actually organization, and the more you start, like when you start to work with one organization, that's when you realize there's another organization, because you interact with other stakeholders in the community, in the region. So you come to learn about so many different organizations that you can actually, work together, you can work for, you can work with. So that's how I found myself now going back to my public health, element. I started working with that organization as a program coordinator. For some time, it was a temporary role, but I was like, this is my calling. I'm going to go for it. Even if it's 2 months, I'm going to take it. But I ended up staying there for a while, actually. And then after that, I moved into a children mental health organization that works with children between the age of 7 to 12 with behavioral issues, still funded by Public Health Canada. So I was still in the role, and I moved to my current role, where I work as the executive director for an organization that works with women, or protecting or advocating against domestic violence. Shelters women who experience or who are at risk of domestic violence or intimate partner violence. It's quite a rewarding organization, I'll say, still in the public health industry, and I'm happy. The rest is history. Like, I'll be unfolding my journey probably more again, but that's where I am. And so to encourage someone that where you start, as long as you have the will to push, and dreams are valid, keep pushing, trust in God, believe in yourself. Because one thing I've come to realize in Canada is believing in yourself. Showcase your worth, showcase your skills. Like, if you're given an opportunity, go full blown, like give it 100, and people will know. Because sometimes I can tell you for a fact, some people maybe someone will see you and be like, this foreign person, this one, how will they manage? How will they navigate? But once, like, you start delivering, once you start working with people, relating with people, people start, trusting in you and believing in you and be like, you are actually good in what you do. So things will come through. Things will come, will work for you. And sometimes it's not as easy, especially you are in a foreign country, to start over, but everything is possible. Keep faith and keep trusting in God. So I will see you on my other episode of Empower with Umazi. Stay tuned. Bye.
The very best in my life. Oh, the best